And so welcome to the August leadership meeting. Let me let a couple more folks in here. So welcome to the meeting. And so here are kind of the ground rules. I like ground rules when we get started. So you may want to put my screen as the main screen and we'll go from there. That's kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in speaker view so that I get the recording's good for everyone else. And so, but like I said, welcome to the meeting. Here's kind of the ground rules tonight. If you could go ahead and mute your microphone, and then we'll kind of use a raise your hand. Karen's watching the meeting as well, and so and taking notes for me. But if you could raise your hand, and periodically I'll go back to the wide view kind of when I get to a question where I think there'll be a good question. So you may have to hold it. We may have to backtrack a little bit. When I recognize you, just unmute your microphone, ask your question or make your comment, and then if you would kind of mute it back. Just as we keep adding people to the meeting, that's just going to make it easier for everyone to kind of to hear what's going on. And so tonight, probably the shortest agenda I've ever brought to this meeting. And so here's tonight's agenda. We're going to welcome and start with a word of prayer. We're going to look at some stats, which won't take but maybe just a minute or so unless you have some questions. We'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with adult literature distribution. Then we'll talk about the return to in-person Bible study. We'll kind of cover some general information and then some adult-specific information. And then at the end, I'll just answer as many questions as you have. I did purchase Zoom for the month, and so we can stay online as long as we'd like to. And so stats-wise, really not a lot to talk about. I do want to commend you, so let me kind of put the first slide from the stats part of this up. And obviously, we have last year, or the tall blue lines, where we were kind of in Bible study, adult Bible community. We were kind of knocking around anywhere between 3 and 450 on a Sunday morning in adult Bible study, which was really, really good. And then COVID came, and that's the orange lines that are down at the bottom. And so we've gotten better at kind of recording attendance, but any given week, it runs from about 80 to, I don't think we've broke 150 yet as far as recorded attendance. And so as we look at making plans and things, there's very little attendance recorded in preschool children or youth, obviously, even though they have been Zooming and meeting and those sort of things. But really the adults have been the only ones that we've had organized, recognized groups that have met, marked attendance, and those sort of things. And if you haven't, I encourage you to do that. If you've got a record, you can go back and backdate that in. That would be good. But it kind of helps me know kind of where we're at in the process so that I can make plans and look at those types of things. And so if you've been meeting, regardless of your method, whether it's online, you're doing the video, you're doing a teleconference, we have groups that are doing that. If you have people that aren't in your group, that's okay to add them. Sunday school roles are made to be fluid. But planning, attendance marking kind of helps in the planning process. Where are we? How many groups are meeting? All those sort of things. It's also important that we continue to invite guests to be members of our groups and to add them. I can't stress that enough. Paul and I have had some great conversations in between the worship services the last few weeks about, church growth, what's church going to look like. I just really have enjoyed those conversations. But one of the things that is very different is over the period of time, there was a time when Sunday school was kind of where you kind of got acquainted with the Southern Baptist Church. And then we kind of moved into a period where worship was that place that you got acquainted, and we kind of, our prospect file even is geared towards intaking people from the worship visitors. So obviously you can imagine what's happening to our prospect file. It's dwindling week by week. And so, but inviting guests to your group and encouraging them or inviting them to be a members is very important. That's how our Sunday school is going to get introduced to new people locally, but also minister to people who maybe aren't in our locale anymore. We have people that are attending Bible studies that are in Kansas, Dallas, Fort Worth metro area, where maybe their church isn't meeting, but they have a strong connection to our church. It's okay to add those people and make them part of our groups. That's just good group management. And, as we think about the just inviting and the whole guest process, I think we're going to see over the next foreseeable future that in the encouragement of our members to invite or bring a guest electronically or through a teleconference, get them on our emailing list, or if you have a fellowship event. I've been to a couple of fellowship things where we've just met on the parking lot by Andy's. You go get your Andy's and you just we social distance, and, we chit chat in a group of, 3 or 4, couples or something like that. But the management of that process and beginning to reintroduce people to First Baptist. One of the things I've talked with our education staff about, really our whole staff, is we're in a process where our church is really kind of almost a restart in some ways. A lot of our ministries aren't meeting. A lot of those things that traditionally have been associated with First Baptist aren't necessarily there. Not all ministries, but as we go through this process of restarting, it's almost that we're starting over in some areas. So the management of who people are, where they are, adult Bible study, and then our restarted small group system is going to be key in helping rediscover and re-energize people into our church. And so I don't want to downplay the importance of that at all. I think it's very, very important. And then the final thing is this invitation to Bible study. Sunday school is an evangelistic tool. It's probably one of the greatest evangelistic tools we have outside of Vacation Bible School. What we're talking about here in getting our people to think in terms of their friends that need to be a part of a Bible study really is a kingdom growth concept. And so, as you meet, encourage people in your groups to invite people. I know there are people that maybe their group's not meeting online, but they're attending another group. It's okay to add them to your roll to make role taking easier. When this is over with, if it's ever over with, it's just blips on the computer screen. We can sort that out rather easily. So if you've got someone that's in a class that's not meeting and they're meeting with you, just add them to your roll. That way we have an attendance record on them and those kinds of things. And so any questions about that? And I'll go to a gallery view here. So anyone have a question about record keeping or adding people to your roll, or maybe taking people off of your roll? Seeing no hands, I'm going to carry on. Okay. So let's talk worship attendance. We have none. Okay. Well, that's not really true. We did start taking attendance last week, but I put this together before the 100 and I think about 45-ish people got entered into the system. So with the return to worship in person, we'll start seeing numbers populate back in. But we have to realize that our sanctuary only holds about 175 people in the current configuration for the COVID social distancing. And so how are we gauging worship attendance? We do it through a different set of metrics. We use our web hosting service, which is Boxcast, that streams to our website and then also sends the stream on to Facebook and Twitter. Boxcast counts the number of unique IP addresses, or so like a household that logs in, and then tells us how many are unique for the hour, how many average minutes each IP watched, and gives us a graph by minute. And so we have a good idea that, most Sunday mornings we have, a good number, 150, well, maybe I'll say is an average. I didn't make a spreadsheet to try to figure it out. But if we take and we say, okay, there's roughly 2 people in a household on average, we're guessing, or 1.5, then you can kind of come up to, well, it's not a bad attendance. That would be 200-ish if it was a crowd in the room. Then we add the 50 or 60 people that kind of watch all of through Facebook worship service, and then we have half a dozen to a dozen that watch our Twitter stream. And so we kind of add all that up and multiply by 2, and we kind of run to about 300-ish. And so that's how we've been gauging worship attendance. So if anybody asks you, no, we can't physically count people watching, but we have done things like invite people to say hi on Facebook. That's been good. We can look at the number of people that go back and watch Paul's messages through the website when they're reduced down to just the message. We can also go back and track the number of people that tune in and rewatch the worship service. And so that's kind of, if anybody asks, that's how we're kind of arriving at a worship number. It's not a great count system, but it's the best we've got at this point. So any questions, comments about how we're doing, worship attendance or just attendance in general? Okay, I see no hands up and no nodding, so we'll just keep on moving then. So let's talk a little bit about literature distribution. And so we want to keep our church moving forward in this discipleship adventure that we're all on. And my original plan that I was setting up for when COVID arrived was we were going to begin spend about a year talking about what we wanted to do literature-wise coming into the future, because we're to the end of the 3-year cycle for Gospel Project next year. And so it's time to kind of, in my calendar of things, to kind of begin to evaluate that and to give you some options. Obviously that got put on hold. I'll come back to that in just a minute, but let's talk about what we're going to do this quarter. And so this is this quarter, it's an experiment quarter. And so, I'm hoping that this works. We only gave out about a third of the literature that we ordered last quarter through the drive-through thing, and people just coming and picking it up. And so terribly wasteful as far as recycling. We do have places that take our used literature. They got brand new literature this time that'd never been used, and some of it never been out of the box even. But we'd ordered before the COVID-19 stuff happened. You can't really change it once you have it in the building. And so we're just kind of had to deal with it. So Karen and I have been working on what are we going to do literature-wise, and we've talked to a few people. And so here's kind of what we've come up with, and we think this will be a good plan, but we need your help in explaining it. And so let me kind of walk through this real quick. And so starting with the fall quarter, so that's September the 6th when we change to the next quarter, you'll still have your choice of print or digital. And so, but we are going to make some changes to that. Print, basically what we did is we looked at what got picked up through the drive-through situation last quarter, and we ordered roughly that amount, and we'll make that available through the church office. So if you're one of those teachers that, plans, like I know last time the Millers took a quarterly to everybody in their group. If you want to do that again, call Karen, she'll bundle it, and it'll be just waiting in the office for you to pick it up. If your class is a group, Pat Kramer's class is a good example. that they're not coming back. They don't plan on coming back. They just want to come by and pick up quarterlies as the ladies want them. That's fine to do that. There'll just be a stack of them in the office. When it gets down to, we've got, 20 or so left of each kind, then we'll order a little bit more. We got them from Lifeway faster than we've ever got them before. So I really kind of drug my feet in waiting until what normally is about the last day you can order and still get it for the quarter. And we got it in like 2 days later. And so that tells me Lifeway's sitting on a lot of literature as well, just like we were sitting on literature, because they contract way ahead. And so we'll have print available. Now, digital, we're going to do that a little bit differently. Normally we put everybody in the Lifeway system and it just sends you everything, the PDF, the Word document of the leader stuff, and the PDF and the Word document of the student guide, and just kind of pick out of it what you want. What we plan to do is put all of the teachers who wish to have digital material in the Lifeway system. So you're getting it at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're always getting it. You can go ahead and forward or backwards as you need or want to. You can download it, that type of stuff, just like normal. So if you're a digital teacher, we'll leave you in the system like you were. If you ask for it digitally, we're going to put you in the Lifeway system and you'll have to make an account. But we think that's going to work best for teachers. Everyone else, so like people in your class that just want the PDF, what we're going to do is we're going to buy a bulk license of digital material. And so those are the two groups we've made. And so if you go in your Shelby Next app, you can type in order or digital, and you'll see two groups appear in the group section. And you literally can add anybody in your class that wants literature to be emailed to them. And so Karen will send that out on Wednesday when we put it up on the website. So it'll still come ahead, but they'll get just a PDF of the student book on Wednesday. And so we think that'll be a better system for that, not inundating with us as much stuff. The other reason for doing it that way is we're going to print a limited number from the digital licenses and place in the loop rack a month at a time. So there'll be a September bundle of each curriculum, and we'll just make those as we need them. So kind of what we're up against is I don't want us to be taking advantage of Lifeway and using curriculum illegally. So I have to have some way of kind of accounting for how many licenses I buy. But digital is a half of what a print copy is. If you get printed teacher material, that's available in the church office. Karen will have your name on it. You can come by and pick it up at your leisure, or if you're here on a Sunday, Karen or I can help, or I will be here. I can help you get that. I don't want to speak for Karen. So that's kind of what we're planning digitally. So you'll have your choice still. Everybody will have their choice. We're going to do a limited number of Lifeway printed books, and those will be distributed by pickup only, where that's the only way we're going to put those out. And we'll reorder as we need to, and we can do that for about a month. And then encourage your people to get the PDF through joining those groups. You can do it in mass on a Sunday morning who wants it starting in September, and they'll get it, 4 days ahead. And then when we come back, we'll have a limited number available in the racks a month at a time, just like the loop. It'll come out a week ahead and you'll be able to pick it up. So any questions about digital delivery of literature? And then I'll come back and we'll talk about changes. Susan, go ahead and unmute your mic and let's hear what you have to say.
I don't understand how the class orders says they want digital versus print. I'm not sure. I didn't understand about Shelby.
Okay, I don't know if I can do this on my phone this way or not. I was trying to figure out how to do this live, and I've got too much stuff going on here to do that.
I've got Shelby on my phone.
Okay, so if you go to Shelby, if anybody wants to play along, you can do this as well. But if you go to Shelby on your phone, and that's what I'm trying to get to, it's that whole alphabet thing. It kills me.
Individuals.
I go to Shelby. Okay, now touch the group button. Groups.
Okay.
Yours won't look like this, but it'll probably be your teaching group. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it around. Touch the search feature.
Do I touch my group stepping up?
No, just touch the little search thing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great.
Okay. So now in the search thing, and somebody just sent me a text, so I have to let it go away. So in search, type, I think order will work. Okay. And you should see two groups.
Order.
Okay. There'll be digital order of explore the Bible or digital order of Gospel Project.
Okay. I didn't get, excuse me. I didn't get anything when I typed order in.
Larry, I didn't either.
Okay. Wonder why. Well, everybody should have. I will go back and check that. The other way to do it, there are two ways of doing it. The other way is go to the website, go to the group finder.
Now, website, which website?
The church website, FBCRR.
Oh, okay.
And do the group finder, and I'll figure out why the thing is not showing for everybody, and get that fixed. And then on the group finder, click the adult link, and then on type of group, click order, and you should see those two groups. You'll put in your first name, last name, phone number, and email. It'll match you, and it'll put you in the group. And so I know that does work, but I'll get this group turned on for everybody. Okay.
Larry.
Yes, sir.
I can't raise my hand, so I'll just wave at you. Okay.
Okay.
You said they would send these things out Wednesday. Is that every Wednesday for the following Sunday?
Every Wednesday for the following Sunday.
Super. Thanks.
And so getting people in that group, so I need to get this error fixed. It worked here in the office for Karen and I, but we're also staff. It worked for my wife, which I don't understand because I steal my wife's password and use her phone. So, but I will have that fixed by tomorrow.
Because she's your wife.
I don't know. She should be as normal as everybody else. So, but there will be those two ways to get the literature. If you have problems, do it the old-fashioned way. Take a list, send it to Karen, and we'll add them to the group. And so we've got really three ways of doing it, and we'll get those, make sure that they work. Okay. Yes, Susan.
So Larry, if we get into it the way we're supposed to, if you get that fixed, then does everybody order their own, or does whether they want digital or print, or does one person order for everybody?
You can do it either way, Susan. In the Shelby app, if you are sitting there and go, because I know a lot of you, because I jump in and out of your Zoom meetings, and you send an email and say, how many of you want it delivered digitally? Then you can just put them all in yourself, or if your class is proficient, you can just say, join this if you want. So it should work for everybody. I don't know why it's not. And so glad that we found out now, because it was in the worship announcements last week and nobody told us. It's in the worship announcements again this week. So we got to get it fixed. Make sure that it works.
Do you or Karen have a preference, Larry, or which way?
No, it just puts you all in the same group. The reason we're using a Shelby group is that's our best sets of email. We can program it so Karen can do it like a month at a time, trying to not make this super burdensome on anybody. But we can do it for either or, both literature styles, or both literature lines, I should say. Okay. Yes, John.
I noticed, when you're sending the literature out, it's going to be like just the week lesson, like 6 to 8 pages, whatever it is. What I've been doing is, I've been using digital stuff already, but when you go to the Lifeway website, it downloads the entire personal study guide, and I just email the entire thing to the class, and they have it. They just keep it. I mean, what would be better? Would it be better to do it every week or just send it once?
I have debated that in my brain for 8 weeks, John, and we are spoon feeding it, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but we're doling it out a week at a time through the website already. So rather than change that system, I said, okay, we'll just do this. You as a teacher can still download the entire group pack and send it out the way you were. Just let me know how many. I want to make sure that we're paying Lifeway what they're due. And so if you want to, as a teacher, you'll still have access to get in there, and because you can also get it a unit at a time as well. And so there's too many different ways of doing it and too many options. So I settled on the one. So if you want to continue to do what you're doing, John, just let me know how many you're sending out, and I'll just add it to the order is what we'll do. We just want to make sure that Lifeway's getting, when it's all said and done, if a lawyer came to me, I could go, see, I've paid everybody. I paid you what I used. And that's really what I want to be able to do. I want to be fair to Lifeway. Any other questions about that? We'll get it fixed. It'll be singles if people want it. You as a teacher can send it out however you want to. Richard, I see that hand.
So this is just an FYI. It's not really a question, but we've been buying the literature on our own for years now, and we switched over to using the app. So we buy the update each quarter and use it through the app, and that's actually works pretty well. So anybody that's interested in that might want to try it, but you do have to pay for it yourself.
Yeah, you do have to pay for it yourself. I can't pay for your app literature. The other thing that is available there is an EPUB, and I played with the EPUB, and PDF just seems to be universal. Week at a time seem to be the simplest. So as most things in Lifeway, there's way more ways of dealing with it than I can manage, or that you can manage. And so if you need a different solution, we can probably come up with that as well. We are kind of basing this upon what we're already doing for the people who use the Baptist Way material. We either have been giving, like Jerry Bradley's in the meeting, we give Jerry a PDF, X number of licenses of PDF, and for those that want them, we print them and make them available. And so we're kind of basing it on what we've already been doing for a couple of our classes anyway. And so, like I said, there's multiple ways of doing it. For those of you like John who are sending it a quarter at a time, your class is used to that. Carry on. Just let me know how many, and I'll make sure that we pay Lifeway if that works. Otherwise, if you want people to get it a week at a time, just put them in that group and that'll work. And then if you need some other solution, see me and we'll invent it or we'll buy it. So anyway, other questions about literature before I move on? Okay, let me jump back to this view then. And so I alluded earlier that we needed to kind of come back and have a discussion about our literature. And so I want to kind of give you warning, kind of let you know what we're going to do, those types of things. I appreciate your faithfulness to be teaching through the pandemic. I'm pleased with how many groups are meeting, attendance is getting taken, those sort of things. We'll be pushing to do better, obviously, as time wears on. We're coming out of the summer and things are settling a little more. But as we approach the end of the Gospel Project cycle, I'd ask you guys for a year, and you did that without complaint. Then after the year was over, we had a couple, classes went back to explore the Bible, which was fine. those sort of things. But as we get to our winter leadership meeting, which is will be around the end of October, 1st of November, or end of November, somewhere in there. I'm going to, that's going to be the focus of that meeting. Is we're going to have a lengthy discussion about literature, where we're going, that kind of thing. But in October, I'm going to send you, probably I may even mail it. I don't know. It'll be kind of thick, and I don't know if if you're like me, we get into a huge PDF document, it just gets cumbersome. Sometimes it's better just to flip the pages and look at stuff. But I'll be sending you a sample of all 3 Baptist lines, Connect 360 sample, which is the Baptist Press material. And we'll have a frank discussion about what I think the strengths and weaknesses of each of those materials are. Hopefully by then we'll have maybe an idea of who our pastor will be. He may have some input into that, or want to have some input if he's about to come on site. So, but we need to have all the literature discussion really wrapped up and feeling good about it by about June, because that'll be when we'll have to make the wholesale change and kind of get our congregation ready for whatever's next. And so I just wanted you to be aware of this. This is more of what's coming rather than anything that I think we need to decide about tonight. But, if you've got, ideas, or you would like for me to look at a curriculum line from another group, I'd be happy to do that. But when I did that informal survey, kind of getting ready for the meeting that was a bust last time, kind of Baptist distinctives was really high in that list. Biblical doctrine, good biblical doctrine, sound doctrine was high on that list. And then teachability. Those kind of were the 3 things that kind of came through the informal survey. And so that's kind of where, I'm going in the process. Literature is, believe it or not, when I started back when I rode the dinosaur to church, I had the entire Lifeway product catalog memorized, and the whole like 2 Sunday school lines and all the products. I think it was at one time the Lifeway catalog was just over 1,000 items. I can't even tell you what it is today. The ways that we could do curriculum and who we could do curriculum from have just exploded. And so kind of narrowing it down and making it a fruitful discussion is what I'm trying to do for the November. And so, any questions about that? Back where I can maybe get a gallery view, just so that you kind of know where we're going. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll trudge on. Okay, so let's talk, probably why everybody's here, let's talk about returning to Bible study. And I subtitled this, Here We Go Again. And so as we think about returning to Bible study, over the course of the discussions of returning in my prayer guide, I kind of kept coming back to some things, biblical ideas and principles that kind of were percolating in my prayer life as I worked through my frustration, my anxiety about things, my personal fears about stuff, and then how I was going to help lead you all to be successful. And so what I want to do is kind of share with you the kind of 6 things that I've shared with our staff that you're going to hear Sunday in the announcement video. I want you to hear them first, and you to kind of know my heart, the heart of our education staff, which is myself, Tim, Melva, and Tracy, and kind of what we're trying to do, or what we think we need to lead our church to accomplish. And so let me kind of step through these and kind of share with you the guiding principles are kind of at work as we think about reopening. So the first of the principles is this: we know that we're in a situation that is going to remain fluid. I get up 2-3 times a week, and the first thing I do is I look at the Williamson County dashboard. And so I'm the guy on staff that can tell you how many people died this week, how many people are on a ventilator. I mean, I'm Mr. Morbid, but the situation remains fluid, and the information is constantly changing. And so we own that. We know that it's going to be fluid, and we're always going to be in a position to need to be flexible and make adjustments. And so that's a guiding principle. The second one is that we recognize as a staff, there is no perfect time to restart that's going to meet all of the needs or deal with all of the concerns. There isn't a day that it's just, this is going to go away and we'll magically go back to what we were. I just don't sense that that's where God is at in this. I think there's some exciting opportunities opening up, discussion points that are opening up. I just don't think we will go back to ever exactly to the way it was. And so we just recognize there's not going to be a perfect time. But the third thing is that we should start when and where we can start. And so rather than trying to wait around and get it just right and be perfect, we're trying to be wise, follow God's leadership, and start when and where we can start, and begin to move forward, which leads kind of to the next one. We should plan now, today, to grow back a new organization. And I think that's one of those things that it's almost a principle in my mind, in my prayer journal. It's I drew a picture of a wineskin, and we don't put old wine in new wineskins, and so how we go forward may look somewhat different, but we need to be planning now for what that new organizational structure and team's going to look like. And then the next one is we need to plan to live in a hybrid model for an extended time. And I can answer some more questions about that, but we're going to be in a situation where classes, there may be some of our classes that choose not to return and they live digitally and have a great ministry and meet in and around. We may have classes that are time shifted. I don't know what all the hybrids are. I have a good idea from talking to friends and looking what other churches are doing, but I think we're going to be in a just a hybrid situation where we're doing a lot of things, the same thing in a lot of different ways. And then, and I think this is the most important one, is why I put it sixth, is building back the core of FBCRR should be the priority. And so I'm going to send you the link to this PowerPoint. If you want to share it with people, that'll be fine, or you replay the video and kind of follow along. But building back the core, in my feelings and my talking with people and accepting teacher resignations and not hearing from teaching people, as I send out emails, I know we've lost, and we've lost a lot in some areas. Children's ministry comes immediately to the forefront of my mind. We've lost preschool. I know we've got adult teachers that have resigned. Our worship attendance, even if you add all the numbers and you pick whatever multiplier you want to multiply it by, it's not 700 people. And so building back the core ministry so that the main supporting structure that makes everything else at First Baptist run is a priority. I think it has to be a priority. Is so building back a strong Sunday school small group system. That's who this church is. That should be a priority. Having worship. I'm so proud of Bo. Most of the churches I know have kind of caved in, and they have the same. They do this one worship service, or they do the same worship service multiple times. Do you realize we're doing 2 distinctly different worship services on a Sunday morning? There's some days that Bo gets the Harry Houdini award because he's pulled a rabbit out of his hat. And, as you see Bo, encourage him because if Bo could figure out how to get a choir back, he would. Matter of fact, we're going to have a hymn sing. And so just because Bo knows this church wants to sing. And so, but we've got to build that core back. That's got to be, as we've always stressed developing leadership. But we're going to need a lot of new leadership. We're not going to be able to look and just kind of look at the pasture and, whistle and the old horses come running back. We're going to have some new horses. We may have to have whole teams of horses in some areas. And so just know my heart in this is that there's a building project ahead of us. And it's not brick and mortar. It's reconnecting and reestablishing the core of who First Baptist is. And so let me stop there for a second and field any questions that you might have to this point. Okay. Thoughts, comments, raise your hand if you want to speak. Or if I just totally put everybody to sleep. Go ahead, John.
Let me get the mic open. One of the questions I had is, we, in the class I'm in, have had a situation where we've had a child of a family in our group has passed away. And my question is, who on staff do we send that information to so that the pastoral staff can respond to those people? In the situation that I had, I'm not sure anybody did, but I'm hoping that somebody did.
Yeah, that's a good one. And so let's just call it, okay? The best thing to do is send it. Kurt is the associate pastor and is leading the team. So if you would send it to Jared, send it to Kurt, okay? That's the easiest way to do that. I would also recommend copying it to Lori and then copying it to Larry. And if you don't feel like something's happened as a Sunday school teacher, let me know and we'll take care of it. If we have to go eat crow, we'll go eat crow. But yeah, the strange situation that we're in right now is it's amazing the number of people who still don't want to visit. And I can understand, the number of hospitals that do not want us to come. I can understand, and so there is if you would have told me I'd have gone 6 months without making a hospital visit, I would have laughed at you. I may have to pull out my video of me teaching somebody how to make a hospital visit so I'll know what to do. But if a ministry need, address it to Kurt, copy it to Lori, and copy it to me. And if you don't feel like you're wondering, email me and I'll follow up on it. Okay. Is that a fair way of doing that?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. But I also know this, John, you're going to beat me to the punch every time. And they're probably going to feel more ministered to by you and your class than they will be me. And so I think the situation that you're talking about, I reached out to the family by email before the death. So I'll check into that tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was asking is, right now, the group that I teach with the Zoom meeting on Sundays, that's about the only real interaction we have in the group. And so when something happens, our group has a tendency, to email and call and that kind of thing. If they need food, we do that, whatever. But I wanted it to make sure that they didn't feel disconnected from the church. And that's why I think it's important for a pastor to make a contact. phone call is probably the most common thing that's going to happen these days, but so that they know that the church is aware and that the church is trying to support them. I don't want them to feel like we're an isolated island out here during this entire time.
I will tell you this. I don't know how many other staffs do this, but if I call somebody, I've been logging it in the interactions. I don't know if you've been into Shelby lately. Shelby redid all of that interaction stuff that was so confusing. And now there is a tab on everybody's page. And I need to check to make sure it's turned on. So I'll check tomorrow, or if you check and see if it's on for you. If it's not, let me know. But there's a tab now called Timeline, and you can click on the Timeline tab and it will show you interactions. So if I've most of the time, if I've called or made a ministry visit or something like that, I log it. It'll show attendance, those types of things all in one kind of page, and you can filter it by groups and things like that. But they've kind of consolidated some things. That's not in my notes, so I probably should keep moving. But anytime you think that there, is a ministry need, let those three people know, because we're in the office and we check. It's like Ray Thibodeau had surgery Tuesday. I called before, Lori called the day of the surgery. I called after the surgery. I think Kurt called. And so that's what we're trying to do right now. Is we don't want people to fall through the cracks, but it also helps if you can connect the dots. Sometimes if it's just a name, it may not register. So make sure that you kind of connect the dots, that this is, like in your situation, you did a good job, but that we know that who they're related to really helps. That's a great question. Ready to move on? Oh, go ahead, Richard.
Well, you were talking about, how we get people back. And I think one of the problems that we have in our society, and I think it leaks over into the church, and probably shouldn't, but it does, is that we're very driven by fear. And we're driven by this view that the COVID-19 virus has the same kind of impact on everybody. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't. I'm one of those guys that look at the data all the time. Before they pulled the death data off Williamson County, the last time I checked, it was probably a few days before they pulled it off, not a single person age 30 or under had died from COVID. But the biggest group of COVID cases was in the 18 to 30 range. So to me, if we can focus on getting those younger people back in and involved and doing their thing, they might get in contact, they might get sick, but they'll get well. And then we can begin to build back from there. Now, a group like our group, and I know Susan and our groups talked about it, we got a lot of people that are in the high-risk group. You look at that chart for the deaths, and the older you got, you hit 70s and then 80s, the death rates went way up. So those are the ones we need to protect, and we need to be careful about that. So the real thing is how we do that effectively and get people back living their lives it's a real good
thing. Yes, Susan, go ahead. Unmute your mic.
Yes. I'm not planning on coming back immediately to teach the class. I am teaching a class on Tuesday nights, but a few of my ladies, would attend Sunday school. You had mentioned doing a hybrid class yourself. Would that be where I would recommend that those people go if they want to go to an in-person class?
Yeah, let me walk through some stuff, and I think I'll come and answer your question in how we're going to restart and what we're going to do in the interim time. Okay, so let me dive into that, and if I don't specifically answer your question, Susan, we'll go back into it. Okay, so let's talk restart, shall we? So let me flip the view here, and we're going to restart right now. The plan is October the 18th, and so some of you are going, wait a second, you just announced September the 6th. What happened? And so why the change? And one of the things I keep talking with our staff about is our church needs to understand why. And you all are the best mouthpiece that we have for explaining things. And so I want to walk through a little bit of the why with you real quick. And so we're listening as a staff, we're listening to our volunteer leadership. We picked a date. We felt good about it. We kind of went back and started rechecking with some leadership. And many of those folks expressed that it was too soon, that they weren't quite ready to come back, which basically presents a staffing issue. We can't have preschool children student ministry in any large scale form of adult Bible study without our volunteers. They're just critical. And so the first reason is that we're listening to our leadership, and a large portion of our leadership is just kind of like either on the fence or not ready. You know, like Susan is a very common response. I'm planning on coming back, just not yet. When I did my little informal survey of when do you think you'll come back, we had, I'm ready. We had a few I'm readies. We had a few October. We had a few when the new year rolls around, and we had a few when there's a vaccine. And so this is kind of following kind of what we're seeing from our volunteer leadership. And so adults probably have it a little easier. We can make adjustments a little easier than maybe certainly Tracy and Melva can. They have a whole bunch of guidelines that they have to kind of work with. Maybe a little easier than Tim, but Tim's a little more like us. But it basically boils down, our leadership was telling us they weren't ready. And so we moved the date. And so many of the people that we talked to expressed a desire to see what happens with the school system. And we think that's a reasonable benchmark. My wife taught school today and immediately came home and put her clothes in the washing machine and went and took a shower because she said, I've been around people. I didn't ask who the people were, but she just been around people. I know nurses that do that. And so a desire to kind of see what happens in our community with school. A lot of parents are waiting on that. And so that factors into it. And then I think the third one is October the 16th is the end of the first Round Rock grading quarter. And at the end of that quarter, parents will be at another decision point, or if school does come back, and that's an if, we don't know that for sure. But if school does come back, then that'll be the next decision point of virtual versus school. And so we think the 18th, the Sunday after that was why we picked that date. And so those are kind of the three whys. And so let me kind of stop at this point and see if anybody's got a question about that. Why we picked the 18th, the logic behind that. Seeing no question, we're moving on. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Crystal, I think one thing just to consider maybe as you guys talk about that, because I do work with school superintendents, schools basically have 8 weeks to determine if they're going to stay remote. So we may just want to keep that in mind, that really schools are staying remote. They have the ability to stay remote for 4 weeks, but the board can decide they're staying another 4. So as you guys think about October, I'm just throwing that out there because in truth, the grading period may be modified accordingly. So
yeah, and we're going with the best we have. We also know this, Crystal, it takes us about 3 weeks to get you all ready.
Yeah.
Right. And so that all kind of factors into that. And so we're hedging on top of the hedging, basically. That's how I would explain it. But your information is right on and definitely very, very much worth considering and plays into this. Other comments, questions about that? Feel like you could answer somebody's question about why they push it back? Okay. So let's move on, shall we? And so, so with all that said, so back to Susan's question, options. I'm right now, I'm teaching the Gospel Project, and I've been recording it because I had some computer issues. They're pretty well documented, but I think most of those have worked through. So I'd gone to recording it so I could kind of participate in worship as well and be available to the production teams. And so as we get a little closer to when we think we're going to change, I probably will move my Bible study. I don't plan on doing that right now because every time I move times, I lose people. So, but in the course of things, there's 4 hybrids or 4 grouping things that I want to kind of push us to consider, or these are the options I think are doable in some variant. Okay. And so let me kind of step through these real quick, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to get to Susan's answer after this. So there are 4 kind of options that I see for groups. One, for those groups that aren't meeting right now, and we have several, I want to contact them and I want to offer to them training so that they can start working towards meeting with their group. A lot of our older adults are getting comfortable Zooming with their kids, and I just don't want the lack of knowledge to keep some groups from meeting. For example, I'm meeting with Virginia Wood next week to for her to get comfortable and experienced in doing and leading a group with Zoom, because she can have people call in, or they can, get the app and do it with their phone. Part of why I'm using Zoom is most of you are using Zoom. And so we want to begin to try to get more classes online. And so that's the first option. We need to deal with those parts of us that aren't meeting and really have just kind of drifted off into the ether. The second thing is to continue to meet through a meeting service. And I'm going to use meeting service as kind of a generic thing. It's Zoom, it's, Google Meets, it's WebEx, all these, we have some classes that are using a free teleconference option, web option. So just meeting service is a general online kind of catch-all term. But you continue to have groups that are meeting at a time that's convenient for them. There's nothing magical about Sunday morning. You can time shift groups a lot easier. John Thornell's group does Bible study, and then most of them immediately start playing the worship service, because as soon as the worship service ends, they're still doing Bible study, but as soon as the worship service ends, you're able to play it as a replay. And so, you can time shift, even though we're producing content at certain times, we're trying to keep a lot of this in a format where you can shift it around. Like even this meeting's being recorded and it'll go probably into YouTube. But we want to see groups continue to meet through using a service that feel comfortable to do so. And so that's the first 2. The third one is to meet in person. And this is kind of getting to where Susan's at an alternate time and location. And so practicing all the suggested guidelines, obviously, and all of the precautions, it is possible for some groups to come back. I know I've had a lot of conversations with Jim Davis about his group coming back. We're not going to offer that as Sunday morning because we're not going to say we're having Bible study in mass. But if Jim Davis's men's group wants to come meet, there's like 6 of them, they want to come meet, then we'll make arrangements for them to meet socially distanced, no coffee, all that stuff, here in the building at an alternative time and location. It probably won't be in their classroom where they were because we have to spread them out more, but we can offer some of that, so if your group wants to meet at an alternative time, we can work that out. I say might, there's conflicts that we'll have to work through, but this is a real problem. So for example, how many people do you think we can seat in the second floor assembly area. Anybody want to venture a guess? Jack Johnson, you know,
30?
30? That's not a bad answer. 47.
Okay.
So like I took some pictures and I decided not to put them up because it'd just be a waste of time. But like Jerry Bradley's class that had 24 chairs around the table. When I space them out according to the guidelines with the table in the room, you get 10 chairs. So 212, which is one of our larger Sunday school rooms, equivalent to like the equipping center of that size room, it now becomes a space for Jim Davis's class. Now they're spread way out, you know, communication. A lot of teachers, when they figure out how far the class gets spread out, unless you have some broadcast system, you know, like of amplification, then you're just yelling at each other through masks. And so precepts, we walked through all the things we have to do to get precepts here. And basically it kind of came down to, yeah, it's not worth it. And so, but we do have this option of being able to meet at an alternative time and location. Okay. And then the next one is employing a hybrid of an alternative time, location in conjunction with a meeting service at a time that's convenient for the group. This kind of gets at what Susan was talking about. And so because of things that were in motion at the beginning of COVID and have finished, we have upped our bandwidth in the building, our capacity to carry more video calls. We probably have one of the best networks in downtown Round Rock, thanks to some great volunteers. And so it would be possible that you could Zoom, if you came at an alternate time and some of your folks weren't comfortable coming, didn't want to come, couldn't come, don't drive at night, whatever the reason, you could Zoom hybrid kind of thing. Let's say Susan's meeting and they've got an alternative time that they're meeting in their group, but they have a couple ladies that want to come to Bible study and worship. For that situation, I'm going to that's when I will shift my time and I will go from doing my Bible study as a recording to a live recording. I'll be the hybrid as well, where you could sit in the class and I will broadcast that meeting. It may not be Zoom. I'm working on details of how I could do that better. But to answer Susan's question, yes, as people come to worship, we will have what I would call a catch-all class or two. So like, let's say a class comes back. Let's say Bob Hawkins gets spread out and his class can come back. And their meeting, we're probably not going to overrun Bob's class and say it's available to all. I'll be the catch-all class and I'll just keep moving to a bigger space because I can eventually move to the gym. And so we figure we can spread out to about 100 people in the gym. And I think I don't think a catch-all class will get bigger than that. So that's kind of the plan that we're going to step through. If we can, when we get to the October 18th and we have groups, then we'll make sure that you really want to come back beforehand. And, we'll make sure that we've got a space. We may have to say, and this is what drives all of our education staff crazy. Even my catch-all class will probably be done by reservation. You'll have to reserve a spot in it so that we're not going to get overrun. When we go back to student ministry and children's ministry and preschool ministry, we will probably be coming back to a reservation system so that we can manage the number of leadership people that we have and the number of people that we can serve in these groups versus the people that are coming. The first big test of that will be the hymn sing. I think the hymn sing, because we know we can have 170-ish people, 75 people in the sanctuary, the hymn sing will probably be by reservation. And so that goes against everything I believe as a Southern Baptist educator, and God has done a great work in my life, and I'm probably due for revival. That's been that hard on me, but those are kind of the things that we're kind of looking at in that respect. So let me go back to the gallery view here. Susan, did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions about the coming back or the process of coming back? Obviously, we're going to try to give you at least 3 weeks of lead time. We're going to, as we get closer, we'll ask, are you ready to come back? We'll go through that process probably more times than you want to go through it. I don't want anybody to feel pressured to come back. We want to make as many accommodations as we can make. We know that this is a long-term restart, and we're going to be rebuilding. And so we're not going to rush this. We're going to treat people like Christ would treat them, and we're going to walk through it in a kind of a logical, systematic way that honors God and treats people like they're God's creation, instead of just, y'all get back here because it's time. That's not what we're going to do. Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
Larry, will we deal with this capacity of 10 people? How do we deal with that?
Well, for the 6th, what I'd done was kind of looked at who was coming back, which was basically 2 classes. And I was going to do the catch-all class, and the 2 classes I've started rearranging rooms and stacking chairs, so I kind of know what rooms hold how many people. And even when we come back, this is, like I said, this just goes against everything I believe, everything I've been taught 40 years of my life to say this. But Jerry, we might have to do a reservation for who can come to your class.
Yeah.
And man, I just look at Melva's face. She hasn't flinched. She's not smiling. That's my sentiment exactly. I hate it. But I can't think of any other way to protect my beloved leadership team and the people that are coming and not get blown out of the water or cause a problem. And so right now, that's the plan. Now, obviously there's temperature checks and blah, 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 blah. We had a plan for a 6 space, like you came and, they've done research, and now kind of COVID has 4 primary symptoms, and they kind of come in an order, but you can have 2 of them at the same time. But basically you run a fever, you get a cough, you have stomach issues, and then you have diarrhea. If you were in my adult Bible study and you said, man, my stomach's kind of hurting, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the conference room, quarantine you, take your temperature, call your mom, and send you home. There's no other way of dealing with it. And, any staff member that does that, I'm going to stand behind them and be the first one to go in the room and disinfect after them and send them home so they can shower. There is a lethality to this virus. Most of us will never, ever be affected by it. But I think there is something about demonstrating Christ's love to the world that says we're going to do everything we can to take care of you and protect you. And that's the mode we're in right now, Jerry. I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's where we're at answer. Okay. Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Wayne.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I polled my class by email and text a little over a week ago in anticipation that we were going to be coming back at some point in the near future. And of course, with the exception of maybe 2 people out of 22, we're all in a high risk group.
Yeah.
And a good many of us, myself included, have respiratory disease and just can't sit for any length of time with a mask on. So the question is there going to be a point in time in the future that you can see when we're not going to have a mask requirement because only 1 person out of 22 people was ready to come back, soon with mask and all. 1 person.
Yeah. Do I see a time, Wayne? Yes. Can I tell you when that time is? No. I'm just going to be honest
Do we
with
have
you.
any criteria for establishing when that would be?
We kind of try to follow the CDC, and the government recommendations, and then we err on the side of caution. That's the best answer I can give you. Do you have to wear a mask in the United States? No, but it makes sense. And so that's what we're kind of going by. And so I wear a mask. Matter of fact, I always have it in my pocket. I've worn it so much now, my wife will look at me in the car and go, "Why do you even have that on?" Because it's just her and I. It's just I've gotten so used to it, I'm too lazy to pull it off my ears. But I don't have a date for you, Wayne. I wished I did. But for right now, encourage your people to, and I know you take really good care of them, Wayne. Encourage them to be safe, take care, and we'll see them and love on them when we can.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, John, I see your hand.
This is kind of a secondary question, but what kind of communication do you guys have with other churches? Because I would think if all the churches in the area, maybe even in Austin, were kind of talking to one another, we could kind of get some best practices out of, what people have tried, what's not working, what they've had trouble with, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we do. We all like what are your friends telling you? A lot of the stuff I have are from other churches, larger and smaller than we are. The problem is with that approach is we all know what everybody's doing, but the why everybody does it is so different, and their setup is so different. We're comparing Austin Stone, which has no real small group space, to First Baptist that is built on small group space, to Central that's going to have to work around a school. That's how we found the germ logic. You should see my phone. I'm afraid to touch it because it's been germ logicked. It has this greasy sheen all over it. I don't think anything can live on it, but I don't like touching it either. And so, we do compare notes, John, and we do steal from, not steal, that's the wrong word. Yeah, we steal ideas from other people, and other people steal ideas from us, and we're all good with that. But when it boils down to it, we're somewhat unique, and our age spread is somewhat unique, and so we try to take all that in consideration. But yeah, we do compare notes. But here's the other thing you need to know. The Ministerial Alliance, which is the principal pool of sharing, they went 3 months without meeting because they were all doing exactly what we're doing, trying to figure out what to do. And so it's not the most reliable network, if that makes sense, John. But yeah, we do. And I'm not ashamed to steal a good idea from anybody.
You're not really stealing, you're borrowing for a lifetime.
No, I'm stealing. I mean, just call it what it is. Thank you for trying not to protect me, Calvin, but I learned that from my mentor. Anyway. Yeah, it sounds good. I try to be honest. Okay, so ready to move on? Is that good information for everybody? Okay, let me jump to the next thing, because this is kind of a rubber hits the road important part of all of this stuff and kind of what we need to do, I think. Okay. So let's talk about the Group Finder again, that little tool on our website that helps people find classes or can get you in a group. What I'd like to do with Group Finder is I would love to update it with, if you're meeting at an alternate time, I know Susan, I think, dropped off, but if you're meeting at like Tuesday night at 7 in a Zoom meeting, there's somebody that might want to join that. And I'd love to I'd love to get the Group Finder updated to what you're actually doing meeting wise. And so if you're meeting on somebody's back porch, we can tag the porch, we can put the time in, and the join button will contact the team leadership. And so I think we're at this stage of things are starting back. There's going to be some sort of normalcy return because of school. We need to get ourselves in shape to capitalize on that. And so updating the Group Finder with day, time, when you're meeting that reflects what your group's actually doing is going to be important over the short run of this. Like I said, update, daytime, location is going to be important because people are using it to find groups. And even our church members, I'm going to begin to push them. If your class isn't meeting, here is the list of groups that are. And so those groups that aren't meeting, we're not going to get rid of them, obviously, but we're going to drop them out of the group finder. And so, if it's the class isn't meeting, then we don't want to, show that it is. We want to represent that accurately. So we need to update if you're meeting. We need to update all the information about when you're meeting. And then we do need to reflect the groups that aren't meeting. Is that kind of clear? If you can send that to Karen, that would be awesome. And we'll make the necessary changes to make sure that that's reflects what's going on. One of the things that Paul and I have talked about is how do we, because he would like to, and you've heard him do this, would like to push people towards Bible studies, but he's looking for a clear way to do that. So I want to be able to say, Paul, the group finder's ready. Tell them if they're looking for a group that's a hybrid meeting, a digital Zoom meeting, or they're in a teleconference, that, we can reflect that. And so getting that up to date will help Paul with what he's trying to do in some of his messages. And I think it'll make it just easier for people to get in your groups. Clear as mud on that one. Okay. So let me go back to the wide view here. I have talked roughly for about an hour and a half. And so I have reached the point of just what questions do you have? What would you like to hear an answer about? What do I need to get you an answer about? Those types of things that would be beneficial. And so this is a free for all. Ask me anything all the way down to what I want for Christmas. Okay. So anybody have something they want to know or would like to know about?
Larry, when we update the group finder, do we want to let Karen know what the Zoom IDs are and all that kind of stuff? How do we get
No, because I don't want to publish that. I just don't want random people dropping in. What it will do is there's a join button, and that join button will send you their contact information.
Okay.
And then you can send them and say, hey, we're glad you want to join us. Here's the link.
Yeah.
So I want to protect you. I said in the beginning, don't publish those things because people can just drop in your meeting and they might be in their birthday suit. Nothing wrecks a Bible study more than a birthday suit. And so, especially if they're spewing expletives. And so do that through, once they get added to the group, we can put them in the group. They'll be on your email list, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
That's a good question though, Bob. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments? Yeah, Richard.
So I just want to make a comment. I have somebody who I talk to frequently that works on staff, as you know. But I really think that this is a difficult time for all you guys that are part of our staff. And I want to say how much I appreciate all you guys are doing, and especially you, because think of all the technology stuff we're doing now, and you're not trained as a tech guy primarily. So you've had to do a lot of stuff that's kind of outside of your normal work training skill set. And I just want to thank you for all you do. And for our staff who having to do it without Jared there to lead you, it makes it even more difficult. So I do appreciate you and all the people on the staff, and please pass that along.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll accept on their behalf, and I'll give you something to pray about. The switcher's making a funny noise, and so I cleaned the dirt out of it today, but I think it's got a fan going out, and so we'll see what happens by Sunday. But it's tomorrow's agenda. And, people have asked about not having a pastor to lead and those sort of things. I think one of the things as you talk to our people around you about staff and leadership. You know, Paul's doing a great job of preaching. A lot of people like Paul's preaching. But one of the things that I look back and go, God, you really must love this church by how you've taken care of it. Do you realize that Tim Darst, with 11 years of experience, is our most rookie staff member? Our most rookie. I mean, he's the baby, 10 years plus of experience. You know, I'm at 40 years. You know, this church has a seasoned staff. I can't tell that we've missed a beat. You know, we could have thrown Oscar Wise up there to preach and we'd still be all right, you know? And so, Oscar, I'd love to hear you preach sometime. I really would. You do a great Bible study. So I need to suggest that. But, you know, kudos to our staff, you know, I've watched, you know, Melva and Tracy, people who don't really cotton up to technology, don't really like it. I mean, they're killing it. And the amount of work that they've put in, Tim, if you haven't followed Tim on Instagram, all the places that Tim's at or played Fortnite, you know, with him and students, you know, the hours that everybody's slogging in is amazing. And then we've got an interim pastor that wants to help us grow even in the midst of this. We're in a great spot. You know, I just thank God for all of the stuff that he's provided right now. You know, there are churches that were scrambling to figure out what to do technology wise and how to get their service online. We've been doing it for a decade. You know, our big thing is we fight over lights. You know, what should it look like? You know, there are churches that are trying to figure out how to even get it done, and we're trying to fine tune it. You know, the number of teachers that immediately flipped on Zoom and started teaching here, phenomenal. And so, yeah, we've got places where we need to get better. And you know me, I'm never going to be happy until, you know, we have 10,000 people in Sunday school, and then I might not be happy. But y'all are doing a great job. You really are. And so I appreciate you very much. And I know our staff does as well. Other questions, comments? Budget's doing good. You know, worship as we can count, it's doing good. You know, we're coming back. We've got some groups that are going to start trying to meet. Melva's doing a Bible study through kind of under the Merge umbrella. Merge is doing a Beth Moore online Bible study. Precepts is going to be meeting online. CR is coming back. I think they're going to try to do a hybrid. On Thursday night, we're moving them around in the building to try to accommodate that. Ministry's happening at First Baptist. You know, we're still meeting benevolence cases. The phone's been answered. There's not a day that we haven't showed up and worked and done ministry here. And so kudos to this church. I'm very proud to be a part of it. Very proud. So other questions, comments, things you want to know about? Man, this is the quietest you've all been. You're making me nervous. You really are. There's normally a lot more bantering and chirping going on. But anyway, if there's no other questions or comments, let me close this with a word of prayer, okay? And then I'll kill the recording and we'll call her done for tonight. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, as I look at my screen and I'm just so pleased with the people that I serve with and the things that they do to make First Baptist a place that loves people. Lord, we've talked about groups and ministering and making sure people don't fall through the cracks. That's the kind of church I enjoy being a part of. Lord, just help us as we continue to work to not just try to survive, but as we work to move forward in this time of COVID. Lord, you've gifted us. You've given us the tools. You said the body is not lacking. Lord, let us call the body to action. Let's do what needs to be done in Round Rock. I pray this in your name. Amen. Well, thank you all for joining me. Y'all have a great evening. And if you can send some stuff. Yes, Oscar. Oh, you're just waving goodbye. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording and kill the meeting and go get supper. Y'all have a great evening. Okay.
Amen.